The Philippines is once again confronting a strategic reality it has long tried to manage quietly. In recent days, incidents involving Filipino fishermen near contested waters increased aerial and maritime pressure around Scarborough Shoal, and the continued presence of foreign Coast Guard vessels have reminded the public that national defense is no longer an abstract debate. Yet despite rising tensions, Manila's challenge is not how to fight a war, but how to protect sovereignty without triggering one. This dilemma defines the Philippines' current defense posture. The country does not seek confrontation, nor does it possess the resources to engage in a symmetrical military contest with a major power. At the same time, repeated gray zone actions at sea and in the air demonstrate that passivity carries its own long-term costs. The question facing policymakers and increasingly the public is whether the Philippines can stand firm without being drawn into open conflict. What the country is experiencing today is not conventional warfare, but sustained pressure below the threshold of war. Water cannons against fishing boats, close-range maneuvers by Coast Guard ships, and competing claims of airspace control are all part of a strategy designed to normalize dominance without firing a shot. These actions are carefully calibrated. They test resolve, impose economic and psychological costs, and shape public perception, all while avoiding clear triggers for collective military response. For the Philippines, this form of pressure is particularly challenging. The nation's geography is both a strength and a vulnerability. An extensive coastline, vast exclusive economic zones, and reliance on maritime livelihoods mean that ordinary civilians often become the first to feel strategic pressure. Fishermen are not just economic actors, they become symbols of sovereignty. Every incident involving them resonates far beyond the tactical level, touching issues of dignity, livelihood, and national identity. The recent confrontations near Sabina Shoal highlighted this dynamic. When Filipino fishermen were injured and vessels damaged, public reaction was swift. Many Filipinos expressed anger and demanded stronger action from the government. At the same time, there was visible caution. Few called for war. Instead, the dominant sentiment was frustration that the country seemed exposed, yet constrained. This dual emotion, anger without appetite for escalation, defines the political space in which Philippine defense policy must operate. Scarborough Shoal adds another layer to this challenge. Unlike other features, it carries deep symbolic weight due to its history and proximity to the Philippine mainland. Reports of aircraft being challenged in the area, regardless of differing official narratives, reinforce the perception that pressure is no longer confined to the surface of the sea. Control of airspace, even informally asserted, carries strategic implications far beyond the immediate encounter. It signals who can operate freely and who must react. Faced with these realities, the Philippines has begun to adjust its defense thinking. The shift is subtle but significant. For decades, the armed forces focused primarily on internal security. Today, there is growing recognition that external defense, particularly maritime and air domain awareness, must take priority. This does not mean preparing for invasion or pursuing military parity. It means raising the cost of coercion and ensuring that pressure does not go unanswered. Naval modernization plays a central role in this approach. The introduction of modern frigates, acquired through diversified partnerships, is not about matching any rival ship for ship. It is about credibility. A Navy capable of sustained presence, basic air defense, and interoperability with partners changes the strategic calculation. It signals that the Philippines is no longer a passive observer in its own waters. These ships also serve a political function. They reassure the public that defense spending translates into tangible capability, not symbolic procurement. For a society wary of militarization, this distinction matters. The goal is not to project power outward, but to prevent intimidation inward. Presence rather than dominance becomes the measure of success. Equally important is the Philippines' expanding network of defense partnerships. The alliance with the United States remains central, providing strategic deterrence and political backing. However, cooperation with Japan, South Korea, and European partners adds depth and flexibility. Training, technology transfer, and joint exercises enhance capability without locking the Philippines into a purely confrontational posture. This diversified approach reduces dependence while increasing strategic options. Critically, these partnerships are framed not as preparations for war, but as mechanisms for stability. They emphasize international law, freedom of navigation, and crisis management. This framing aligns with public sentiment. Most Filipinos support closer security ties if they are seen as defensive and stabilizing rather than provocative. Public opinion itself has become a strategic factor. Surveys and social discourse suggest growing support for protecting maritime rights, coupled with strong resistance to reckless escalation. The Philippine public wants firmness, but also prudence. Any defense strategy that ignores this balance risks losing legitimacy at home, regardless of its external logic. Looking ahead to the next decade, the Philippines' objective is not to become a military power, but a strategic actor that cannot be ignored. This means improving surveillance, strengthening naval and air capabilities incrementally, and maintaining diplomatic coherence. It also means investing in institutions that can manage crises calmly, communicate transparently, and sustain public trust. If the current path continues, the Philippines is likely to enter the early 1930s with a more resilient defense posture. Not invulnerable, but less easily pressured. Not confrontational, but no longer silent. The alternative, retreat into ambiguity and avoidance, would almost certainly lead to further erosion of maritime rights and public confidence. The core lesson emerging from recent events is that avoiding war does not mean avoiding defense. In an era of gray zone competition, restraint must be paired with resolve. The Philippines is learning, sometimes painfully, that sovereignty is not defended in moments of crisis alone, but through consistent presence, credible capability, and strategic patience. Standing up without fighting is not weakness. For a nation in the Philippines' position, it is a deliberate strategy, one that recognizes limits, leverages partnerships, and places national dignity alongside national survival.